Hello people, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Ripple ex-CTO says XRP may have been targets of behind the scenes hostility. Okay guys, let's get into it. I mean, there's no may about it, right? We kind of know this as a matter of fact at this point. So let's get into this then. So this is one of those times where I really, hate the fact that I can't do videos as quick as I'd like to get them done and get them out, but here we are. So I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about here. You can see it on my screen. I'm just going to say the e-files because I don't know how this could affect my channel, so I'm going to keep it a bit, keep it on a bit more of the cautious side here. But we all know about the e-files, and the e-files are now out. Well, not all of them, but there's been another big dump. And guys, look, I'm not going to lie to you. This is absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And for me, this has been, really eye-opening, to be honest with you. So let me just tell you my stance on conspiracy theories before I get into this. So I've always said to you guys when I do videos, my stance on conspiracy theories is not all conspiracy theories are false, right? There are conspiracy theories out there that are true. However, I've always said for me to go and believe a conspiracy theory, I need some level of evidence, right? Because let's just be real, there is a lot of conspiracy theories out there that are just made up. People are just making wild accusations with no proof to back it up and just saying wild things. So there are some crazy conspiracy theories out there which are, to me, clearly not true. But that's not to say that all conspiracy theories are wrong. And so this, to me, as being to see it in black and white, even for me, it's been eye-opening. But I will say this. There's two things that I've said on my channel very early on. The one thing I said was, when the SEC lawsuit came out, was there an agenda at play? Right? I said, look, to me, this is odd, because the lengths that they were going to try and hurt Ripple in the lawsuit, if you followed the lawsuit and heard some of the things that they were saying, the SEC, it was so obvious that they were lying, and it was so obvious because it made them look stupid, the things that they were saying. Some of the things that they were saying, I couldn't believe they had lawyers, professional lawyers, saying these things because it was so provably untrue. So it showed you the length that they were going to try and harm Ripple. And so I did say back then, is this possibly a thing where this is just trying to hurt Ripple and XRP as much as possible? Is there an agenda here where they've just been sent to try and harm XRP? My original thought was because of the banks, which, if you think about it now, if you look at the Clarity Act, the main reason why we're having this pause in getting the Clarity Act passed is because the banks don't want stablecoins to be able to earn a yield, right? Because that's going to hurt their bottom line. So you can see that they don't want that to happen. And so they're pushing back against this getting passed because they know it's going to affect their business. It's going to affect their bottom line. And so to me, I was under the impression that it was banks trying to stop XRP ultimately because, the whole bridge asset thing and being able to, utilize this new technology, which could affect the banks and again, their bottom line. And the second thing I said is, the stablecoin thing with international remittances. They're using stablecoins for cross-border payments. And I've said, look, to me, I don't really think it makes sense. To me personally, I don't get why you wouldn't just use XRP, because if you use XRP, you can just have it converted into whatever currency you need it to be. Why would you want to use someone else's stablecoin when you can literally just use your stablecoin, send it to whatever country or whatever, and it'll just transfer into their stablecoin or their fiat currency automatically? They haven't got to do anything. They haven't got to get the stablecoin and convert it. And don't get me wrong, in these days, because of crypto technology, that can still happen quite fast and obviously cheap. But why bother when you could have it done automatically for you with XRP as the bridge asset? So I was always confused about the whole stablecoin thing being used for international remittances. And to me, if I'll be honest with you, this to me just kind of starts to solidify what my thoughts are, to be honest with you, because we can now see that in these e-files, there was someone actually saying that Ripple and Stellar are the enemy, and how they basically was trying to get investors away from supporting Ripple and Stellar. So there's no two ways about this. I mean, I think David here is being a little bit modest about this, like saying, we may have been targets. You were. Like, it's literally there in black and white. There's no may have been about it. You actually were. And to me, it does say a lot. It does say a lot, because it does seem to me that Ripple and XRP have been targeted this whole time. Stellar as well. Now we can admit Stellar as well. And this is where I start to say, like, would XRP be somewhere completely different if this wasn't the case? It really starts to make you wonder now, right? Because to me, I said this about the SEC lawsuit. I said, even though Ripple won the lawsuit, the damage was still done. The SEC, even though they didn't get the exact result that they wanted, right? Even though they didn't get the exact result they wanted, they still managed to hinder Ripple's progress. And I've said this before. David Schwartz has said that there was a big partnership that they had going underway during, before the SEC announced their lawsuit, right? And once the SEC announced the lawsuit, the company who they were going to have the partnership with, they actually come back and said, actually, we're going to sit this out. We'll wait for you guys to deal with the lawsuit, and then we'll come back to you. And they haven't come back to them since. So that was a huge partnership. He never said who it was, but they said it was a big partnership that they had. And it was literally, almost finishing off that partnership, like signing it all over, getting it all done. And then the lawsuit happened. So, like, we can see how this has affected Ripple and XRP. There was no real access to the American markets during the lawsuit. There was only one exchange. And look, you've got to understand, yes, okay, there was one exchange, but you're effectively blocked out, because there's a lot of people who are not going to be willing to sign up to one exchange just to get one token. Some people might do if they really believe in it, but think about it like this. Who's really going to want to invest in XRP when they can see there's an ongoing lawsuit happening? Why do you think that XRP was the only top 10 crypto in 2020, 2021 in that bull run that never hit a new all-time high? It was obviously because, one, they were shut out from the American market, so a lot of people didn't have access to XRP. And two, if people are coming into crypto during a bull run, who's really going to look at XRP, hear that it's going through a lawsuit and say, oh, I'll go invest in that token, even though its future is actually uncertain at the time? Who's going to do that? A lot of people who were in XRP at that time, they were already in XRP and they were holding in the hope that the lawsuit would go in our favor, which fortunately it did. But a lot of people sold as well because they saw the lawsuit and said, I'm not risking that. That's too dangerous, because if they lose, then yeah, we're going to be in trouble. Which I understand. I didn't sell, but I do understand for people having that worry, because that lawsuit could have gone either way. It really could have. And when you look at it like this now we've seen this from the e-files, right? Imagine if we'd have had a corrupt judge. We was lucky, really, because we had a judge who was honest and fair. If we'd have had a corrupt judge, they could have just backed the SEC all the way, and Ripple lost on everything. So we were really lucky that we actually had a judge with integrity, right? And so to me, I look at all this now and I say, I didn't even think this was real when I first saw it. I'll be honest with you. I thought someone had put together like an AI thing to try and, bring XRP in. I just thought it was just people trying to hype it up again for XRP. But David Schwartz responded to it. And then I was like, okay, this is real. And then when I'm seeing what's being said, I was just like, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And so this is what we've had to deal with as XRP holders. And I do feel sorry for Ripple to a degree, because this is the thing. My question now is, look, I've always said I don't think every bank in the world is going to use XRP. I've always said that, right? But if, let's just say, we didn't have these powerful people trying to block XRP and harm XRP and Ripple, XRP, who knows where it would be right now? It could be a lot more successful than what we currently see it as. There's things in this that we've seen, and we know how powerful Mr. E was. We know how that, how it was now. We've seen all the documents and things like that. We know the kind of things that was going on behind the scenes. He knew powerful people. So if he wanted to block this small startup company, Ripple, he had the power to do that, and he had the connections to do that. And we've seen that from the SEC lawsuit. Like, to me, this completely confirms that the SEC lawsuit was completely bogus from the get-go. It was just to try and harm Ripple and XRP. There was no genuine intent on it whatsoever. Which, don't get me wrong, I kind of knew that in the beginning, but I didn't know it was people behind the scenes. Like, I had this idea of maybe that's what it was. As I say, I thought it was the banks, but I didn't know the degree to where this went. And now you obviously see it in black and white, and it really opens your eyes. And so, the thing that I will say is, to me, like, this is, it's just showing me that, like, yeah, behind the scenes, you just don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Now, the one thing I will say is, like, I know a lot of people may use this now for the whole $10,000 stuff. I'm just going to tell you my opinion on this, right? If anything, this says to me that the $10,000 stuff still wouldn't be true because of two reasons, right? One, if it was true, you would think you would see something in the documents that talk about them, fixing the price to $10,000, right? They would be speaking about XRP in a positive light and saying how, yeah, like, at some point we're going to, raise the price of XRP to this much money and whatever. You'd think that's what you'd be seeing, right? And two, the thing about this, kind of piggybacking off of point one, it's negative. Like, if anything, they're trying to stop XRP being used. So the fact that they're actually here trying to say, hey, like, Ripple and XRP is the enemy, that doesn't sound to me like people behind the scenes want XRP to go to $10,000. If anything, it sounds like they want XRP and Ripple to cease to exist. That's what it sounds like to me. So I wouldn't be seeing this and be thinking, oh yeah, like the $10,000 thing, that's definitely true. But I'll be honest with you guys, like, I can understand if you see this now and think, oh yeah, look, there are things out there that, happen and stuff like that. So fair enough. You can choose what you want to believe. I'm still not convinced personally. I'll be honest with you. As I say, like, for my reasons I've just stated, I think if anything, this shows me that they wouldn't want XRP to be successful or Ripple. So if anything, I think it's more negative than positive. But you guys have got to choose what you want to believe. I will still continue to bring my facts and data as to why I don't think it's likely, but that's up to you guys what you want to believe. But look, this has been eye-opening for me. Like, just seeing this in black and white. I've had my suspicions and I have said this on the channel, but to see like this in this way from the e-files, it's just surreal. It's just crazy. It's absolutely insane. And I'll be honest with you, as an XRP holder, it does make me angry. It does, because it does make me feel like we did have an opportunity that's ultimately being taken away from us. I feel like this is a situation where, like we backed the right horse, but the race was rigged. That's what it feels like. So just to cover off some things off the back of this. So who was the person who sent this email? It's Austin Hill of, I think, is it Blockstream? Austin Hill of Blockstream. So he's, I believe he's a Bitcoin maxi, if I'm thinking rightly. I've heard about him before. And this is just another quick point that I'll make to you guys. Back in the day, and this is actually true as well, people would actually pay in Bitcoin. This was when Bitcoin wasn't worth nowhere near what it is now. So understand, we're not talking in like, the Bitcoin of what it's worth today. People would pay people Bitcoin to write negative things about Ripple and XRP. That's actually a true fact. That's what people would do. So this is how deep this goes. Now, it starts to make you think, when you was hearing this stuff, who was those people who was willing to give Bitcoin back in the day? So, like, was this people like Austin Hill, and he had a team of people who would go out and try and incentivize people to, to try and knock Ripple and XRP? Like, this is how crazy this is. So yes, like, XRP to me just shows you, like, the true power of XRP. They've always seen it as a threat. And I don't really think it's far-fetched now to say we know that the reason why people held XRP back is because they were scared of its potential. That's clear. That's evident. It literally said in the email, it's damaging to our ecosystem. Supporting Ripple and XRP is damaging to our ecosystem. That's like what the banks are saying with the yield, right? They're saying, hey, like, that's going to hurt our pockets. If you guys are out there doing a better service than us, it's going to hurt our business because we're going to lose customers. That's what he's essentially saying. So he was literally scared of XRP and Ripple. That's how serious this is. It's absolutely insane. But it just shows you Ripple were onto something with XRP. They were. And like I say, like I said this numerous times, when we've spoke about cross-border payments, they've gone the way of, stable coins. And I've always said, I don't really get it. I really don't understand it, because XRP is the way more convenient factor, to be honest with you. Like, yes, you can use stable coins. I get it. But it's not the better option. The better option is just to use XRP, because whatever country you're from and whatever country you're sending it to, you don't have to do anything. You just send it and then it'll just go to that country in their currency or in their stablecoin automatically. You haven't got to do anything. So to me, it just makes sense. So yeah, like it's always been a bit of a strange thing to me about the stablecoin thing. And I did say, like, is this a thing where they're trying to hinder Ripple and XRP success? And I'll be honest with you, I'm more convinced of that now. I think that's what it is. I think that was a way to try and lessen XRP's role as a bridge asset. I really think that's what happened here. So yeah, there's just been one other thing. So basically, they've actually been pressed, like, people are saying to Ripple, like, look, you need to try and demand full disclosure of any, Mr. E links over XRP. Like, is there any more documents in here? Yeah, I don't blame people for thinking that. I think that they should. And I would think with Ripple, wouldn't they want to know this kind of stuff? Like, wouldn't you want to know if you can literally see that people are trying to affect your business and your crypto, that you're trying to get utilized? I don't know, like, I would just want to know that myself anyway. If I saw something like this, I would definitely be pushing for that. Now, I don't know if this is a thing of maybe Ripple and these guys are thinking, hey, we don't want no trouble. Like, maybe that's a can of worms that if we open, we could get into more issues. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but we'll see what happens. But I agree. They definitely should want more information about this, because there could be way more emails. There could be more information. So, yeah, overall, I think this has been very telling, and it does show you that, yes, behind the scenes, there are definitely dark things going on. Unfortunately, this hasn't been a positive thing about XRP. It's been a negative thing. So again, for me, in terms of like the $10,000 stuff, it doesn't really give me any more confidence on that at all. If anything, it makes me think more they wouldn't want that to happen. But it does just show you guys that, hey, we were suppressed. We were literally suppressed by people who feared XRP and its potential. And we don't know how damaging that could be now. It could be that XRP never reaches its full potential due to this. It could be that even to this day, there's still people behind the scenes. Austin Hill could still be to this day talking to companies and people and behind the scenes, like powerful people, and trying to suppress XRP in different ways. It could have been Austin Hill's idea to try and get stablecoins used for cross-border payments. It could have been Austin Hill who convinced Swift to work with Ethereum instead of XRP. Like, again, that was another thing that to me just didn't make sense. Why would you go with Ethereum for cross-border payments? Like, yes, I get that it's the second biggest network out there, the biggest crypto, but from a technology standpoint, Ethereum's awful to use for cross-border payments. It's terrible. It made no sense whatsoever except for thinking, oh, well, it's the number 2 cryptocurrency. But that's a stupid move, because using it from a technology standpoint, it will be terrible. It's just ridiculous. So this is where I start to think now, like, how deep does this go? And just seeing this shows that it is pretty deep already. So this rabbit hole could go a lot further than what we know. And this is why I'm saying we don't know the true damage of this. We really don't. When you see people like, I forgot the guy's name, but he was one of the people who worked at Swift, and he was really knocking XRP. Who knows what he's been convinced of to harm XRP? This could have been Austin Hill in that guy's ear saying things about XRP, and he's made him dislike XRP and Ripple, and so he's out there fighting against it as well. You know, and in all honesty, like, XRP and Ripple, I'm not saying that they was ever going to overtake Swift. That's just not realistic. But their technology is better. And so there's a thing for Swift to fight against XRP because they're competitors. So you see what I mean? So all this could have been a whole thing of like the amount of hate that Ripple gets in XRP. All this could have been a coordinated effort from the powerful people on the inside. Like, this is really mad. Like, this goes really deep. It really does. So, you know, like, we've got to see how things pan out, but we'll never know the true damage of this, and we'll never know how far it goes to even this day. It's very possible that this is still going on, even from 2014 in these e-files. So, it's crazy to say, but that's the truth. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. But look at that. The fear that XRP brought to these people behind the scenes. As I said, guys, we had the right one. We was just in a rigged race. We backed the right horse. We was in a rigged race. That's the problem. And that's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. But we'll leave it there. We'll see how things go. I mean, I still think XRP can be a success. But I will be honest with you. My honest thoughts. Could XRP get to its true maximum potential? I don't know. Because if you've got people like this behind the scenes, powerful people, all going against XRP, it's hindering its growth. It is. The SEC hindered its growth. Like, we've seen that happen. The SEC tries to completely take Ripple and XRP out, 100%. So, like, this is dangerous grounds. It really is. So, yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching this. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And hit that bell. Take care.